Hello, everyone. This is Gynarchy Awakening, back again for another video. Uh, you may have noticed something. Unfortunately, the job wasn't complete, so sometime after I'm done, I gotta eat and then kill this and a little bit of this and down here. It's just what a botched job. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of focus on a bit of positives because that's it's always a good thing. I wanted to talk about the positives I've experienced in the Gynarchy community. I want to go by them one by one. First one is peaceful. I love being part of a community that's actually peaceful, that is not violent or destructive or trying to like legitimately harm other people offline. There's something very disarming about it that it lowers my blood pressure, my tension, because when I think about the most negative things I've ever experienced in this community, even lately, it pales in comparison to the things that I experienced when I used to be part of the other communities. When I was part of the other communities, I was worried about losing my job, losing any job I could get. I was concerned about um, losing myself to hate. I was terrified of the possibility that one of them one day could turn on me and try to kill me. This is the kind of stuff that happens when you're part of a hate group or a gang or whatever. And so getting away from all of that was something that I'd been trying to do for years. And the irony was, no matter what it was, for a long time, whether it was communities or relationships, I kept running into people on the internet who were either at first they seemed like okay, they're cool, but then certain situations, conversations brought out the absolute worst in them and in me. I think the worst thing that happened in this community is I got banned from a group. That was like literally it. It's the worst. Actually, no, that and being compared to Dave. I didn't even know who David Koresh was. I had to look that shit up. I was like, who is this guy? What? He's religious? You already fucking. I mean, you already fumbled the football in that one, pal. I'm non-religious, so I mean, okay. Oh, is it something else? I don't. I have no convictions on my record. I have no felony convictions. I have no misdemeanors. I'm a citizen that's never been convicted of a crime. So, and also, as far as like, what is it, the cult shit? This is so funny because I've never like actively tried to recruit people in my personal community. I've never tried to uh, get people to do anything violent or destructive. The only thing I've ever done is posit suggestions and ideas that I think could benefit and help the community. I don't think that's the same thing as trying to get a bunch of people to go commit an act of terrorism. But that's just me. But that's the worst thing that ever happened. I just got compared to a like a thug. It's just it's like that's it. That's it. And there's nothing. That's nothing compared to when I was in a hate group. I felt like there was poison in every part of my veins. I felt physically sick when I was in that community. I thought about killing people and destroying everything all the time. I never did anything because I had a lot of moral uh, safeguards in place that prevented me from getting to that point. Even when I was in a hate group, I had very strong morals. I had barriers to this shit that I had to break through, and thankfully, the level of brainwashing of hate filled indoctrination was not enough to break through all of those walls. So there is, I do have a level of resilience when it comes to my willingness to unleash the beast, so to speak, the monster that I feel lies inside of every human being. It's just to what degree is this monster? Is it is it bad or is it like supervillain type bad? I think everyone has a different monster, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. We're human beings. We had to kill in order to survive as a species, and I believe that that's partially what's responsible for the existence of um, the two sides of us, the violent side and the non-violent side, your creative side and your destructive side. So, anyways, it meant a lot to me to be part of this community. And one great positive is that I've actually been able to heal because of the community. I've been able to get away from them. I Once I got past the whole individuals represent groups kind of problem that I used to have, I found that this place was where I could talk to people, where I wouldn't have to feel like I had to be violent or had to participate in violent in violent rhetoric or talk in order to feel like I belonged. Um, Pretty much every other community before this one, there was always the idea that either you had to be on board with the violence or you should at least be open to the idea of being violent. I already have violent thoughts and feelings. I don't need someone fanning those flames. So this is the perfect community for me because I have to have a balance. And I believe that the Gynarchy community provides that balance and keeps me from going over the edge. So it's kind of like this. Otherwise it's like that because you have people in every other community who think that the ends justifies the means. You've got some real Machiavelli motherfuckers in pretty much every other group you can think of on the internet. And they all think their causes are justified. They all think that whatever violence they need to commit is justified, even though there are always opposing forces who think the exact same way. So they operate on a level that's frankly psychotic. And I don't want to be part of that anymore. And this community has offered me a place where I can discuss my thoughts and feelings peacefully. That was the irony, because when I'd first heard about this community a long, long time ago, I thought they were violent. I thought that they were out to get everybody because of the brainwashing. But then I found the community. I'm like, these are the most peaceful people on the fucking planet. Despite what everybody says, right? Oh, it's this group of people that's no. It was actually them this whole time. That's part of why I have such I have an enduring grudge with that other community. Why I don't talk to them. I associate with the old community I used to be part of because they made shit up. They lied about these people, and these people have done more for my life than pretty much any other group ever has or ever will. I will never forgive them for that shit. The next positive I've had in this community is fresh topics of discussion. Whenever there's a topic posted in the discussion, whether I like the individual or not, whether I like the discussion or not, I can't deny the fact that it's always certified fresh. Whether it's because I of course I brainstorm my topics. They're nice, but it's nice when I'm able to contribute when I can. But pretty much every time I go and I read topics from other groups, I'm always shocked at the level of the freshness. I thought that at some point everything was just kind of gonna go in a loop, and we were going to keep regurgitating the same talking points. This happens in other communities, by the way, which is interesting that it doesn't happen here, and I think I know why. But when you have like the first hateful community I was part of, they literally regurgitated the same 15 to 20 talking points in every fucking video. They pretty much did, or they did a variation on the same topic. But they would run, and eventually it was like a dog chasing its tail. They kept running in circles with these points. And this happened in the other communities I was part of. They, likewise, got into certain kinds of patterns and routines. And it was like this. It's like the same discussions, the same thoughts we've all heard a million times. They just didn't seem to have what I would call creativity. And yet, when I go into the Gynarchy community, when I read any kind of group post, I'm always surprised by what ends up being brought up. Like, I didn't know that Japan was matrifocal. That was wonderful information to hear about. I didn't know about hot and cold. I heard about that recently. Read it. I was like, wow, I'm completely stunned. I couldn't see it coming. And part of it's because I need to be more educated. I have looked up certain works and literature. I just need to get around to buying them, actually writing down titles, buying them, adding them to my library, which I will do at some point. But the fact is, I can't predict what topic they're going to bring up. And I think part of that is because since the Gynarchy community is centered around a label that itself could be limiting if you just think about it strictly within a power structure, you don't think about the how to, the whys. You don't think about any other related topics. I feel like almost in a sense that the impetus is on the people in the community to sort of branch out and connect things to the topic of Gynarchy. Because otherwise, the word by itself and everything that it contains might not be as far stretching as it otherwise would be if you decided to do what they do. So I mean, I always feel that it's a positive because every time I go there, it's like, what are they talking about now? It's always genuinely fascinating. It's always refreshing. They have a tendency to be so self-aware that they I know they're reading the other topics that are already done, and they probably maybe some of them write them down, maybe they don't, but it's like one's done, on to the next. And the next one is different from even the first few previous topics, and they keep going and going and going. And I like that. I have a lot of respect for that because I used to be part of communities that would literally they would just say the same things over and over and over again, and it made me wonder. It's kind of funny because people who are on the outside and have a tendency to judge people in this community as cultists or whatever. The irony, though, is that cultists have a tendency to be like part of being in a cult is they brainwash you. They try to reuse the same thoughts and arguments over and over and over until you're more of an automaton than a human being. And yet, that expectation that I had for this community was completely subverted. It's the exact opposite. People are constantly coming up, brainstorming and imagining new topics. You will literally never be able to fully predict what they're going to bring up in the Gynarchy community, in particular, the serious Reddit group. You can't predict it. It's impossible. The third is feeling like your voice matters. Like when you bring up a topic of discussion, because the community is currently small, I think this is one of the reasons why I felt like I couldn't connect to the other communities because they become so big and large. I felt like my voice was just marginal. It was just like on the edge over here. And unless you got like 1,000 likes or whatever, like this is something that's going to change, but it's a positive for me because whenever I do a video, and I'm one of the only Gynarchists that I know of that regularly produces this content. It'd be lovely if there were more out there, especially women Gynarchists doing content, because your voice, you would be instantly recognized if you started doing content. There's a lot of, I think, room to improve, especially for the filmmaking. I apologize. Not the filmmaking, but video production of Gynarchic content is something that there obviously needs to be more of it. I think that. But I also think that because the community is so small, whenever you say something, everybody's going to know who you are. It's like sometimes when I'm in the Gynarchy community, I always imagine like it's like being around a campfire. Like you pretty much know everybody else in the community for the most part. There's a few people who are hanging on the edge who don't participate as much, but they're there. So it really does have that feeling of you stand up, you tell your story to the campfire, and then you go sit back down. And there's just something wonderful about that I can't really put into words easily. And because the community is so small, when you are contributing, when you are saying something, it's easier for you to get engagement compared to others because it's not determined by likes. In other words, if you have 1,000 people who are active in a community, which does happen on other platforms, on other channels, it's like, you could make a comment, but unless your comment gets like 100,000 likes, 10 views, if it gets like 100 comments, unless you're getting that level of attention, you're probably just going to be ignored because people have a tendency on these websites to favor the kinds of comments that get more engagement. And if you're not getting the engagement, it could mean that people are not interested in what you have to say, or they're going and reading the commenters that they've already been interested in this whole time. I think people have a tendency to maybe to forget, but it's not just the YouTubers people are following. There are certain commenters that people are following across the damn internet because they like what they have to say, or they like what those people write out. So unless, I mean, when you're in a smaller community, there's no need to differentiate yourself by like writing up some super awesome comment or by doing something to stand out. You already stand out by virtue of being in a small community, because there aren't that many and what I mean by small community, I mean community of self-identified Gynarchists. I'm not talking about all the Gynarchists. I'm just talking about the ones who self-identify, who get on camera or who create a profile on another website and tell people who they are and what they think. So that does matter. And I feel like your voice matters more here. And I don't know how I don't know if as a part of growing, if that's going to change, or if there's some way we can still make everybody feel like they're included and that their voice matters. I think that could be an interesting video in of itself. How do we continue to make self-identified Gynarchist voices matter as our community grows? Like, what happens when we reach 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever? How do we make our people still feel like they're part of the movement, they're part of this community, that they're not being ignored or alienated? I think that's a challenge for any community, and some communities don't really think too much about it. Maybe we should, because we're already, I think, a more socially isolated community than others to begin with, second only to non-religious people. They seem to be the most socially isolated. Actually, no, we're the most socially isolated, followed by people in the non-religious community. The next positive I experienced is meaning. Having meaning in life. Like, when I go to these communities and these people are talking to me, and we're like, when somebody said they were going to do a pamphlet, that gave me a lot of feelings that I didn't know how to process, because for the first time I felt something that can be akin to like genuine hope. Like, you always hold on to a little bit of hope that what you're doing is going to help. But when somebody is saying they're going to do a pamphlet, what they're basically telling you is, okay, we're going to go and try to connect with the people in the outside world. That right there gave me way more hope. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of non-self-identified Gynarchists out there. There's one who works down the street from where I live. There was one I met in a phone call not too long ago who said woohoo when I told them what the word Gynarchy meant. They're actually, and if you go and you watch my old videos, although some people have labeled them cringy, I mean, really, it just seems like that's a way to avoid the hard, concrete reality that there were women I saw smiling when I mentioned it. There were others who were okay with it. Now, there are some people who were just genuinely not sure what to think. But more often than not, I came to find, far more often than not, that I came to find. What I mean by that is, like, I never expected the amount of people to show interest in it that did. But that's what happened. There were individuals who seemed to be genuinely interested in it. And if you could find a way to introduce them to people in the community, maybe they might go beyond a certain point. They might feel a certain way or think a certain way, but that doesn't mean that they're ready to engage with the community yet. So how you get non-self-identified Gynarchists to engage with the Gynarchy community, that's going to be a challenge. And when that person and another individual mentioned pamphlets, I was like, this is how you know that things are finally changing. Because, and that's where I feel like there's meaning. If something I say or do, some suggestion or idea that I posit, positively helps the Gynarchy community, I feel like there's meaning to what I do. If it influences some kind of discussion, if it takes it somewhere, if somebody is watching or seeing it and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that now, or we're going to talk about this, we're going to take this somewhere, that brings meaning to my life. Because otherwise, I'm just a guy who struggles to get up and feed himself in the morning. I regularly suffer from depression. So having something that's meaningful, and that matters to me. And I think that matters to a lot of other people who are at the beginning of it. Like, we're all here at the beginning of something that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that kind of thing is something you can't replicate. Everybody who is here right now at the beginning We have the ability to do something that generations of people later will not be able to do. When you are at the beginning of the story, whether you're the men or women who are contributing to the community, you are shaping how the story unfolds. And that is something that provides meaning for every Gynarchist in the community. What no, however you're helping, however you're trying to add to the dialogue, to the growth, to the development, sometimes even just to the social and emotional needs that other Gynarchists have. Whatever it is you're doing to add to that, you're right there. You're right there. This is the what is it? Um, I don't remember what it's called. I mean, I'm trying to remember the terms. I think it's alpha, omega. If we go by beginnings, we're in the alpha stage. We're not at omega, which is the end stage. We are in the beginning. And there is something about being in the beginning that is a privilege. I and especially the other Gynarchists, we are privileged to be at the beginning of this movement, to be at the beginning of the growth of this community. This is a privilege that not every Gynarchist will ever have. They will learn about us. They will learn about the things that we tried to do and how we tried to make things better for them. But they will never have the same exact thing. And so there is some meaning to me also in being there right at the beginning with everybody else who are just starting to figure things out, who are trying to solve problems, asking the big questions. In other words, not just a period of self-discovery, but a period where we're considering what actions to take. We're considering, we're reflecting on ourselves, we're evolving. There is nothing I feel that is more privileged than that for our community. And there's also few things I found more meaningful than being able to be part of that in whatever way that I can. Has it come with its drawbacks? Have there been conflicts, and have there been, people who have struggled with this? Of course, that's how it's always going to be. But I think that there's also a very strong base and foundation of individuals who are just going, as time goes on, they're just going to get more and more support. And I'm, of course, referring to people in the communities who are talking and speaking up and bringing up their own discussions and kind of bringing people together. It is happening. It's just like watching it, unfortunately. It feels like slow-mo. It's actually not. This might be happening quicker than people think. And that's because I don't think everybody takes into account all the different variables when they're trying to calculate where something is at or how something is going. The next thing is learning. The next positive I've experienced in the Gynarchy community is learning. I have learned so much just by being in this community. I have learned who gynocentric people are. It has completely flipped everything about my life on its head. It has opened my eyes to the fact that I was wrong about this community from long, long ago, that person was wrong. I have begun learning a bunch of other things about. I've become more open-minded to learning new topics. I've really felt that this community has had a big impact and a change on my mentality and will continue to have that impact going forward. And I can only hope that someday I'm even half as educated or as learned as the rest of the Gynarchist women and men in the community. The next thing is the diversity of viewpoints. So while there is definitely fresh topics, the fact is, when I first came to the community, I was actually shocked, and I still am, by just the diversity. There are Christian Gynarchists, there are non-religious Gynarchists, there are anarchist Gynarchists, there are Gynarchists that still want to participate in the legal system. There are Gynarchists that want gift economies. I mean, I thought that it was just one type of group, and then you learn that there's, you also have radical feminists who interact with other Gynarchists, and it seems like they're on board. They want the same thing or something close. And so you have a bunch of different people, a diversity of viewpoints coming from a diversity of backgrounds. And this, I think, enriches our community because you don't have just one type of approach or one type of thought process or one proposed solution to any given problem. And I think that matters because if you're going to stimulate, I think any successful movement or community needs imagination. And the more, believe it or not, when you try to restrict everything, you put, everything has to be this box or this box, like they can't intermingle with each other. That actually destroys creativity. You have to be able to learn from different sources, and believe it or not, what you think about this, even if two topics are completely unrelated, your thoughts about this topic might somehow inform later your ideas about another one. Or you could be influenced, you could have some kind of moment of inspiration where you're reading all these different topics and you end up coming up with something yourself. Or you look at these and go, okay, what if I can mix these ideas somehow? Different different viewpoints lead to different topics. Different topics lead to different thoughts, different answers, and this is what is necessary to provide a diversity of thought. And when you have a diversity of thought, that actually aids in the I don't know if I'm not a neurosurgeon, but I think it aids in the progress, not the decline, but the progress of the community. Because when you have all these different ideas around your head, you have a lot you can engage with. And while you're busy engaging with ideas, you're stimulating your brain activity. So I think this is just my personal belief. I think that having a lot of different viewpoints, having a broad spectrum of thought, is actually firing and increasing the neural activity in every Gynarchist's brain. And the more we do that, the more we're going to be able to think about things from different. We're going to be able to come up with new perspectives, new thoughts, new ideas. We're going to be able to see things in ways we haven't before. And I think that that is necessary. If we become like other communities and we embrace stagnation, I think it's going to be the same fate as every other one. Uh, and that's something that the community will not benefit from. But right now, it's a great positive, and I think it's going to continue to be one for many years into the future. Are there any positives that you've experienced in the Gynarchy community that I haven't mentioned? Feel free to mention them below. Please take care, everybody, and peace out. I'm gonna go get some food and then try to fix this. Either that or I'm gonna need a professional. Please take care, everyone.